We are joined from Beirut by Halal, a strategic expert, and from Washington by Bassem Abu Samaya, a political researcher. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being on the program. We'll start with you in Washington, Mr. Abu Samaya. US officials have expressed their confidence in negotiations for a ceasefire in Lebanon. How likely do you think it will be that a deal might be reached in the coming days?
I say that the soldiers of the agreement have been circulated through the international Arab and American media personnel were known, but to read behind the lines around these articles that they are not officially set in place up till now, but I think they are just a test balloon to examine the situation. But we should know that the main purpose that the international community is the disarmament the Hezbollah and to lead by the army of Lebanon after the qualification and trained by the USA through a term of 60 days to be supervised by the United States under the threat of imposing economic sanctions on both sides who rejected this agreement. But there are some would speak about prevent the arm through all the inland, aerial and sea arms into Lebanon and not to enter a number of the Iranian soldiers and to be expelled. But the right of Israel to act militarily by the sponsorship of the United States. I think that the official Lebanese statement through Naguib Mikdadi and the House Speaker Barry, they prefer to think the situation, but they throw the ball upon the hands of Netanyahu that he used to dedicate his conditions and to negotiate under the ceasefire article. This is the idea adopted by Netanyahu.
And staying with you, Mr. Abu Samaya, of course it will be a surprise to no one that there's going to be a new person in the White House in the coming months. How significant do you believe this ceasefire could be for President Biden's administration in his final months?
I think this is what Benjamin Netanyahu is pursuing, because he requested since the Gaza war that never listened to the advices of the United States through the initiatives of ceasefire. And in delivering the humanitarian aid, they wait for the end of elections and to forecast who's going to sit upon the president and to decide if Donald Trump became a president. That would be luckiest fortune for Netanyahu, because they will enjoy more benefits made by Trump at the beginning of his former presidency by giving the occupied Jerusalem to Israel as a one Jewish capital and transferred the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv into Jerusalem and closed the office of the Palestinian Negotiator Commission in Palestine. This idea that prevailed, that the Democrats won't be able to do something, but they would continue, whether they are the Republic or the Democrats, to provide Israel by arms until they imply the issue of the putting an end of the military force in the region and to pave the way for live in peace in the Middle East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abu Samaya. And bringing you into the conversation, Mr. Halal, Of course, we have in the published draft agreement, we have a commitment by both Israel and Lebanon to take steps to fully implement Resolution 1701. How do you think that this proposed ceasefire will relate to the importance of 1701? Oh, I'm sorry, I think I need to ask you that question again. We're talking about UN Security Council Resolution 1701. That appears in the published draft. How important do you think that could be? Halal, are you with us there in Beirut? Okay, I think we have a few issues in Mr. Halal hearing us. So I'll come back to you, Mr. Abu Sumaya. Now, how might the internal political dynamics in Israel, of course there are pressures on Netanyahu, he has his war cabinet, how might those political pressures affect the decision to pursue a settlement in Lebanon?
To force Netanyahu to accept the agreement of ceasefire. He has the sole decision in Israel, and no one would make his decision. Even the United States and the European community never could to dedicate, even to enter and to deliver the humanitarian aid in those who are hunger and dying from starvation. This one is reluctant about the decision, and the opposition is weakened. And the more Netanyahu is gaining steps in the field, the more the opposition is sitting back, and therefore the opposition will be able to do to Israel what they should do.
Okay, I believe that Mr. Halal is now with us. Are you with me, Mr. Halal?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Perfect. I want to ask you about UN Security Council Resolution 1701, something very important for the conflict between Israel and Lebanon. It's mentioned in the published draft agreement. How important do you think the implementation of 1701 is to this agreement?
In fact, in 2006, following the war launched by the Israeli enemy against Lebanon and launched its attack dated at that time and within the memory of the Lebanese, and due to the destruction they made in 2006, and therefore after the Lebanese representatives of the army and the people and the resistance against this enemy, and forced them not to approach and to enter in the Lebanese land more than a very limited land incursion, and reached to a ceasefire. And that's what he stated to the Qatari foreign minister, whereas the ambassador of Israel requested to go approaching a ceasefire through the UN Security Council, and was 1701 that they never mentioned the ceasefire, but to mention to stop the military aggressions, and therefore the withdrawal of Israel behind the blue line, and to stop all the aggression in air and land against Lebanon. But the withdrawal of the resistance forces from the Litani south, hidden to the north of the Litani, and not to have any armed forces in that area. In fact, since 2006, Israel never executed this, but continued the aggression in sea, in the air, using the sky of Lebanon to hit Syria. and made an aerial Air Force maneuvering to attack and hit Syria, and returned to make the aggression again to Lebanon, considering after the Lebanese resistance made the support together and considered this resolution as a framework made by the Lebanese president and said and committed that they are fully committed of the resolution 1701, of course with the coordination with the resistant, and then that is fully linked and related to the ceasefire at the beginning, and then to continue what should be done. And then what being said yesterday, Sheikh Naim Qasim, the new Secretary General of Hezbollah, by saying that they will examine the conditions that should be emerged, and by saying that the framework of 1701 is a good framework in order to put an end of this aggression, to while the Israeli aggression that approached the shock and terrifying, and it is the space of the control, the escalation, and while is attacking civilians, claiming that they are party factors by hidden this area, and the genocide and all the segment, and forced the villagers to flee their houses. After he stated that he destroyed all the capabilities of the resistance, and then said that you are working and the activities of the resistance, they destroyed all the actions. So how would he do this? And I think that 1701 resolution is the main framework to ceasefire. But in fact, the installment that made by the Israeli aggression, that is similar what he did throughout a year in Gaza, and we are seeing the same scenario as proposed by the American, and then Blinken and Hochstein come in and listen to positive things by the Israeli enemies upon the negotiation, and we listen to grafts through the media proposed by the American and the Israelis, and they are claiming that they discussed in Lebanon, and then will go back to a voice coming out from there, from the Israeli enemy, either to misreach or to begin fear and threaten Netanyahu to hit the far-right party presided in Israel. And I think that the issue won't be agreed upon the Israeli aggression about a ceasefire quite soon, and I think that the right key is through the field.
And staying with you, Mr. Hallel, once it's finalized, what do you think the main challenges will be that could stop the implementation of any ceasefire agreement?
I did not get the question. Can you please repeat the question again?
Yes, of course. What are the main challenges that might hinder or stop the implementation of any ceasefire agreement?
You want me to answer the question now? Do you want me to answer the question now?
Yes, please, Mr. Hallel.
I end up the answer the previous question that the key word for him, and I think that the possibility in reaching a ceasefire is linked to three factors. Firstly, in the field. Secondly, is the nature of engagements made by the Israeli enemy, that is, move from Lebanon to Iran to the region in general, and I think this is the nature of engagement. And thirdly, and I think that the main pillar is through the US election. Firstly, is the field that will make the Israeli enemy to the stage of pains that around 600 between casualties and wounded through 26 to 27 days, following an unexisted capability such to breach such as the buffer zone around 300 kilometers to protect themselves and the occupied land from the resistance missiles to be launched by the resistance and to target all the Palestinian land, and by launching as random. And there are followed strategies through Haifa that became under the hotline, as well as Kiryat Bona. Therefore, I say that the process of field is the main pillar, and the more the casualties increase, the Israeli community will more accept to the context of the ceasefire. Israel is governed by the far-wing Grand, so what to prevent what is ruled by Israel in the past, such as the European Jews, and now we'll see that those are coming from Haradin and Sephardim. All these people are the one who are saying now that they are the far right wing that launch approaching to achieve the capabilities of Israel. In 22nd July, before the Al-Aqsa operation, Netanyahu carried the bond of ownership to the Jewish settlers, Zionists that owned lands in Saudi and Bahrain, in Lebanon, in Syria and Iraq in 2023. So the claims is that they wanted to go direct into the biggest Israel from the river to the sea. And we do not forget the aggressions upon the shoulder of the Israeli soldiers that leads to where they belong to. They belong to the borders. They consider that they are not exist now, and they want to achieve it from the sea to the river as a responsibility in their shoulders. So their field is govern the situation and the nature of engagement after attack against Iran and his failure of attacking in the centers of missiles, inform us that they want to hate Iran once again.
Okay, well, I'm going to interrupt you there because we're running out of time, and I just want to bring Mr. Abu Sumaya back in to ask him one final question. Given Mr. Abu Sumaya, given McCarthy's comments that saying the situation today is better than yesterday, how optimistic should we be about the timeline for reaching a ceasefire?
We are always optimistic, and we see this through the leaks in the media. And this resolution, if they wanted to be implemented in the ground, that require more than 2 months, as there are several details cannot be predicted. If the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, did not agree in the project, and the same for Hezbollah. So the issue is highly related to how possible to execute and implement such a deluged draft. Firstly, should have a very official paper by the United States that should be as adapted that and stipulate to allow the refugees to go back to Lebanon when they were fled upon the Israeli aggression. But the possibility of implementing this project or this draft, what are the mechanisms? The mechanism till now, it is well known that they all agree to implement 1701. They all agreed upon, with the exception of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister. If they do not agree, so this is the issue.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the program. That was Bahat Hallal, a strategic expert from Beirut, and just speaking just now, Bassem Abu Samaya in Washington, a political researcher. Thank you both very much